Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, November 7th. We have a lot to talk about this morning. We've been talking about an active tropical scene in the Atlantic Basin, despite the fact that we are now into the early part of November, and a transition to a much colder weather pattern for the central and eastern part of the nation. It's not unusual this time of the year to see kind of the last gasp of the Atlantic Basin season kind of play a role in the transition of a temperature pattern across the nation. It's been very warm in the eastern half of the nation over the past several days, and will continue to be quite warm today as well. But by the end of the weekend, we'll have a much colder weather pattern moving into the eastern states, and that will follow the passage of Tropical Storm Nicole, which looks like it'll reach Florida's eastern coast by around Thursday of this week, and then the moisture associated with Tropical Storm Nicole will push up along the Atlantic seaboard. Here is the current location of Nicole here on Monday morning, again, November 7th. Sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. It could reach hurricane status Category 1 before making landfall somewhere along the east coast of Florida, probably between Miami and Cape Canaveral by Thursday or so. And then its moisture will likely ride up along the eastern seaboard and could very well result in a pretty significant rain event all the way along the east coast from Florida to New England, right in this region right here. So again, we have Nicole, now a tropical storm, could reach Category 1 status before making landfall somewhere along the east coast of Florida, probably by Thursday morning or so. And here's the official forecast track by NOAA's National Hurricane Center. They maintain it as a tropical storm, represented here by the S, all the way into the time where it makes landfall, likely early Thursday, east coast of Florida. Again, it could certainly can climb to Category 1 hurricane status by the time it reaches the east coast of Florida, again, likely Thursday. And then it'll become increasingly influenced by an upper-level trough that will be traversing across the nation, and that will help to turn it sharply to the north and then northeast. And again, its moisture field is likely to ride up along the Atlantic seaboard at the end of the week and going into the upcoming weekend. Could end up having a significant rain event not only in Florida, but all along the eastern seaboard at the end of the week going into the upcoming weekend. This is, in fact, a map of the total precipitation amounts over the next 7 days as depicted by NOAA's Weather Prediction Center. And here we go. This is the significant rain event I was just alluding to up and down the east coast, all the way from Florida to New England here. Most of this falling in the Thursday, Friday, Saturday time frame from Florida northeastward all the way into New England, and then even potentially into the Canadian maritime provinces. Now, one other thing I want to point out, we have tremendous rain headed for California for this time of the year, and snow for the Sierra Nevada. Right in this region right here, the mountains of eastern California will receive significant amounts of snow, maybe on the order of 3, 4, 5 feet in some spots of the highest elevations of the Sierra Nevada. But again, a soaking rainfall for much of California, the lowlands of California, and significant snow in the highlands of the Sierra Nevada over the next few days. Well, let's walk through last night's Canadian model run. This is the 0Z run of the Canadian model, and first we'll focus in here on what is now Tropical Storm Nicole. It looks like this will slowly turn to a westerly movement over the next 24 to 48 hours or so, intensify some, and again, it could certainly reach Category 1 hurricane status by the time it makes likely landfall somewhere in eastern Florida, probably between Miami and Cape Canaveral during the morning hours on Thursday. Notice a lot of accumulating snow showing up here. Cold air is charging down into the central and northwestern part of the nation later this week. At the same time, we have what could be a hurricane hitting Florida. Then we move forward here, and this deep upper-level trough will start to have an influence on the movement of tropical storm or potentially Hurricane Nicole at this particular time. It'll turn it sharply to the north and then northeast as this trough moves from west to east. Again, accumulating snow across the northern plains, and it will have already fallen across the Sierra Nevada by later this week. Then we move forward, and that moisture just rides up along the Atlantic seaboard. Same time, some cold air is charging down across the Great Lakes and Midwest. Here we are into the Saturday morning forecast map. This is what remains of Nicole at this time. Again, potentially a significant rain event from Florida to Maine. Colder air pours in across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley region by the early part of the weekend, and all that cold air makes it into the eastern states right here by Sunday. This is a week from yesterday, Sunday, November 13th. Again, a very different air mass headed for the eastern U.S. by the time we get into the second part of the weekend, and it will follow the passage of Tropical Storm Nicole to the east coast and then back out over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Well, in terms of the temperature flip that's coming to the nation, a dramatic change coming for the central and eastern U.S. This is a map from the Canadian Ensemble run from last night, 0Z, for the current 5-day period that we're in, and we have significantly warmer than normal conditions across the eastern half of the nation and much colder than normal weather conditions across much of the western U.S., especially over places like Montana and the southwestern part of Canada. Take a look at how this changes as we move forward to later this month. And here we go. This is all the way out to days 7 to 11, November 13th to the 18th. Look at this temperature pattern change from much warmer than normal conditions across the eastern half of the nation to virtually an entire nation that looks colder than normal by the time we get to the middle and latter part of the month of November. So we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, that kind of the end game of the tropical season in the Atlantic Basin could result in some big temperature changes across the nation as well. And indeed, it looks like Tropical Storm Nicole could arrive in Florida's east coast around Thursday morning. Perhaps as a Category 1 hurricane. Then its moisture field could ride up along the Atlantic seaboard, producing a significant rain event potentially from Florida to Maine. That then exits off the east coast, Nicole, and a temperature pattern ensues with much colder conditions coming to the central and eastern U.S. beginning during the latter part of the upcoming weekend. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.